HIPcast is brought to you by Enterprise Social Record.
And today, I'm still going to call this a treat, while this might be the third person that's been in this role at AHIMA in as many years, or even less, maybe in 2. Hopefully this one's going to stick. So today we are bringing you, the listeners and health information professionals, kind of a little deeper dive or personal discussion with our newest CEO for AHIMA, Dave Cella. Dave, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
So we're going to just get to know Dave a little today and talk about the future of the health information profession, especially as it relates to our organization, AHIMA.
And it is an exciting time to have a new leader step into the role. We're happy to have you. Like Shannon said, welcome to HIPcast, but more importantly, welcome to the AHIMA family, even though you've pretty much been part of the AHIMA family now for several years. Yep. So what we'll do is we'll ask you that question as the first question. Mm-hmm. So a lot of our members that listen to these or watch us on YouTube and get to see our beautiful faces and listen to these wonderful East Tennessee accents. But we won't talk as much. We will ask you, though, introduce yourself to our membership and to our audience.
Sure. Happy to do it. Dave Cella, as you said, I joined the AHIMA Enterprise family, as we like to call it, a little over 2 years ago. And that was due to the acquisition of HC Pro. And I've now been with HC Pro a grand total of about 8 years, and that's 2 different stints. And as I talk a little bit about my background, that'll be a recurring theme you'll see. And I don't know if you've gone on LinkedIn, but I'm sort of the ultimate boomerang, where I've worked for several different organizations more than once, in some cases 3 times. So I'm happy to get into a little bit more about my background, but yeah, I've been on board with AHIMA since September of 2023.
Yeah, so one of our favorite questions that we always ask HIM professionals or any of our guests is to tell us your journey into HI and the craziness that is, because sometimes we very rarely have anybody say, oh, I was a little kid in elementary school going, you know what, I think medical records is where my life needs to be. So,
which would be great, right?
It would be amazing if we could get to that point, maybe put that on the list of strategic initiatives, is to recruit elementary school age children to love medical records. But tell us about your HI journey that brought you into this industry from the beginning.
Sure. Yeah. And I won't go way back, but I will start by saying I did study economics at University of Massachusetts, Amherst, resource economics, which is kind of more of an applied approach to economics, focusing on natural resources. And so I say that because at my first job out of college, I found myself working for an environmental consulting firm, not what I planned on doing. During the interview, I actually told the hiring manager, I don't think I'm the right person for this. You sound like you need more of an environmental scientist. And he said, I can teach you the science. I need someone that can work with our clients and then write the report that we need to submit to the state. So that was a great first job out of college. Half my time was in the field collecting water samples, soil samples. I was, fresh out of college, so 22 years old, and I found myself there trying to tell these drilling crews, where to dig a groundwater monitoring well, or we were excavating underground storage tanks. And so I say to people, if nothing else, it was a lesson in diplomacy, right? Trying to develop relationships with these guys, and they were all guys. So that was sort of my first experience of understanding, every person's different and building relationships. It's really important. And did that for a little while, knew that wasn't my long-term career path. And I'm dating myself here, but this goes back to the days when, job postings were in the paper. So I remember I'm outside of Boston, right? So I'm just outside of Boston, born and raised. And so it was the Sunday Boston Globe, and I'm in the back of the paper, and I see this little tiny advertisement for a job in publishing. And I'll be honest, what struck me again in the 3 or 4 sentences was travel to colleges and universities. That's what stuck out to me. And I thought, wow, that sounds interesting. At that point, I'd only been on a plane once in my life, so I had never done a lot of travel. I was 18 before I ever set foot on a plane. And so that's when I joined a company called Kluwer Academic Publishers, and just a tremendous opportunity. I still don't know how I actually got the job with no publishing experience, but found myself managing a portfolio of academic journals as well as books. And the books were PhD level books. And I mentioned that also because most of the journals we published, that was my first introduction to associations, because many of those journals were tied to a national association. So while I was covering the areas of business and economics, and my background in economics kind of allowed me to do that, it was just a tremendous experience to gain exposure, do that travel, both domestically and internationally. And I loved it. Wasn't looking to leave. And you'll hear that a theme in my little story here. Was not looking to leave, but the company was put up for sale. It was a Wolters Kluwer company. So you might be familiar with Wolters Kluwer. They own Up to Date. So they sold off their academic publishing arm, and I had like 4 managers in the span of 3 months. And I thought, okay, maybe it's time to look elsewhere. And so I joined a company called Jones and Bartlett Publishers at the time. They subsequently changed their name to Jones and Bartlett Learning. Small family-run business owned by the Jones family. Again, loved it, learning that side of the higher education. And I'd fortunate enough to work with someone who was there for a bit of time, great colleague. She left to join a company you've heard of called HC Pro. So she was at HC Pro, and as soon as she was there, she kept on kind of trying to get me to come over. And I was like, no, I'm not ready to make a change again. But she wore me down, and eventually I joined HC Pro. So and Shannon, I can't remember if I said this on the member town hall. I know you joined, but I may have mentioned that was my first introduction to HC Pro. I joined, that was 2004 time period. I managed a portfolio of, oversaw hospital accreditation, patient safety, quality improvement. So that was my introduction to healthcare. And just a tremendous team. I really liked what we were doing. As you may know, HC Pro was started by Jennifer Kofer with one newsletter, Medical Records Briefing. She, at one point, served as board president for AHIMA. I think it was 1991. I don't know if I have my history correct there. But anyway, she started HC Pro with that one newsletter, and it just went from there. And additional newsletters, books. At the time, this is pre-webinars, so audio conferences, training videos. And so once again, loved it, was not looking to leave. But this was my first boomerang experience where one day out of the blue, got a call from the president of Jones and Bartlett and asked me to come back. And just one of those situations where an opportunity I couldn't refuse. It was to go there to really build their allied health program. So they had made an acquisition of part of another company, primarily for their health administration and public health programs. But they also had a few products within different allied health disciplines. And so they asked me to come and build up that allied health piece, which I did. So over the next 4 or 5 years, built that up, had a lot of nice success there. Ultimately get promoted to publisher, where I then took on that health administration and public health programs as well. That was sort of a turning point for me in my career because, well, one, that's when I first started really understanding AHIMA. We had authors and contributors who were AHIMA members on the health administration side. But also the person who was the senior vice president who built up those programs over time at that other company, he came along eventually and joined us. And our CEO at the time asked him to report into me. And so here's a gentleman who's a senior vice president. I think he's 27 years older than I am. And again, I'm in my late 20s at the time. I just remember thinking, how on earth am I going to be this person's manager, right? And I remember being so nervous. He was in Sarasota. I was in Boston area. And I remember getting on the phone with him. And I'd met him once or twice, but this was the first call of him being my direct report. And I was so nervous. And within seconds, he just had me at ease, so humble. And I've learned, I just think back to that because I hope other people have that opportunity, right? I feel like it's sort of rare where one of your direct reports has all of that experience and they're willing to help you, right? Never wanted to take my job, never was looking to do it. So I just feel so lucky. And he retired in 2017 and I'm still in touch with him today. Just an amazing relationship. So anyway, long story short, ended up taking on more responsibility there. At some point, Jones and Bartlett was acquired by private equity. And so we joined another larger organization, at which point we had a new CEO come in. He came from GE, a very, very smart gentleman. And he, I guess, liked what I was doing. And he asked me to shift over and become vice president of product operations for one of the sister companies, National Health Career Association. So NHA, they offered about, at the time, 10 different certifications in healthcare. And so I was overseeing all of that, those product lines, the certifications, as well as the test prep. And then we had this idea to almost do a lean startup. He was very interested in implementing Agile. At the time, a lot of companies were making the change from a software development standpoint of traditional waterfall, very based approach to Agile. And so he tasked me with sort of doing this lean startup, still doing my other job, overseeing the certifications, but again, just a tremendous opportunity, and did that for a while. And then again, recurring theme here, essentially got a call from Jones and Bartlett, still part of the same family now, under the parent company was called Ascend Learning, still is. But I was asked to then shift back after almost 2 years to rejoin Jones and Bartlett's side as vice president executive publisher. So again, just a tremendous opportunity, another step up in my career. And that's when I oversaw their entire higher ed division, which included their nursing program, which was actually their largest. Same thing, right? Loved it. Great team. Wasn't looking to leave. Now we go back to that person I mentioned who first joined HC Pro and convinced me to join HC Pro back in 2004. Had stayed in touch with her throughout my career. And HC Pro had been acquired several times throughout her time there. In the most recent acquisition, after that happened, she kept on saying to me, "You need to meet our CEO. He's just a tremendous leader. I think you share the same values. I think you'd get along." It wasn't a specific job opportunity. It was more, she wanted to make this connection. And so finally I said, happy to talk to him. And I did. And about 8 months later, I ended up joining that company, the parent company, Simplify Compliance, as their chief product officer. And HC Pro was one of their business units. So that's when I was reunited with HC Pro. So tremendous opportunity. I was overseeing all of product and content across about 4 different businesses, HC Pro being one of them. At some point, I took on about 2/3 of the technology team, which included software development, project management, UI, UX. And that leader was just great because he exposed me to so many other aspects of business in general. I was involved in 3 different acquisitions. The last acquisition we did was a company out of Dallas that dealt with data centers. Our CEO asked that CEO to report directly into me for the first 6 months. So I kind of got to work directly with that CEO on the integration, which of course was a great experience with what was about to come with HC Pro. So again, we were owned by private equity, and at the end of 2022, they determined that HC Pro was ready for sale, that they wanted to sell and start seeing some return on their investment. And so early 23, we started preparing to go to market. And it was about that time when the CEO asked me to slide into the president role for HC Pro. And so 2023 was quite the year for me because I was still sort of performing my chief product officer role, but also leading the sales process for HC Pro. And so, and I've said this publicly before, I can't recall if I said it on the town hall, Shannon, but I was absolutely thrilled when I found out that AHIMA was the ultimate buyer. Because, at first it's a competitive situation. You have some other strategic buyers in healthcare, and then there were other financial buyers, other private equity firms. And nothing against private equity. I've had several great experiences. But to be acquired by a company or an association, an organization as prestigious as AHIMA, focused on healthcare and so aligned with what HC Pro was trying to do, to me, that was a dream come true. And so we closed the sale in September of 2023, and it's been a ride since then. So that might have been more than what you asked for, but that's my story.
No, that's amazing.
We have a lot of students that listen to our podcast as well. A lot of the education programs will push our podcast to students because we do ask that journey question. And a couple of things that really stood out to me, and if you're a student out there listening or watching to this, one, it's okay to answer a question in an interview of, I don't think I'm the right person for this, because I think that's a fascinating answer. And then the second thing is you never burn a bridge. Because you can boomerang, and it may not even be back to the same company. It may be a person that you worked with or for that moves on to another company that says, "Hey, I remember working with this person, and they were a lot of fun. I'm going to bring them over here." So that's a very key thing for students, I think, and young professionals.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. So when I go back to my Kluwer days, I was doing a lot of traveling, and I remember I was at University of Pennsylvania. I was waiting for a professor who's one of our authors. And I remember standing outside the office, and there was a sign tacked up to the cubicle. and it said, "Be careful whose toes you step on today, for they may be connected to the blank you have to kiss
That's right.
tomorrow."
That's
Right?
exactly right.
Yeah, that's good advice.
That's exactly right. So first of all, I want to go back to when you were talking about your first, just to point something funny out, or not funny, but I don't know, interesting to me. Seth and I talk a lot offline, as folks probably could imagine by our relationship, but he and I have been talking a lot lately about energy production and SMRs, small modular reactors, because we have to power AI. And you had an environmental stint. And I imagine some of that is going to come back around as we talk about data centers and things like that. Not exactly the same, but a possible
Sure.
connection. So
Yeah.
maybe you won't boomerang all the way back to there, though. we kind of
I hope not at this point.
steady at the ship, at the helm
Yeah.
of the ship for us for a while.
Yeah.
And then I do want to ask both of you all a funny question. Would we really trust a kid that said when they were little, I want to be a medical records or a health information professional? I would not. Like, that is a hacker waiting to just hold data hostage right there. That's crazy. Dave, I appreciate the introduction, and it's different than our HI journey. It was possibly a little longer, but that's important for us because we don't know you, right? Unless we've worked directly with an opportunity with HC Pro, we may not know you. So I think that was very important. Thank you for sharing. I do maybe appreciate a little bit the chaos that you had, where you were part of the selling organization for that M&A, for that acquisition, and then you flipped and you were on that, you're buying, now you're like on that other side. So buying and selling is kind of awesome. Big experience there. So let's move into the future of our profession, and specifically what you're leading in the organization. It's not a secret if anybody listens to our podcast, or if you're just a member of AHIMA, we've had a lot of struggles and a lot of ups and downs, not only with leadership. As I stated early, you're the third one in the last 2 years that's been in this position. And, we need some stability there for sure. Of course, we all have been talking for many years about needing a credentialed person, someone who understands. For me, it's who, if you can sit down and testify on behalf of AHIMA at a Senate hearing, you're probably qualified, right? And so that's been a lot of the interesting challenges we've had. But then just the transparency, or the lack of transparency, or the just not knowing what AHIMA is doing as a member, that makes it a little hard. The erosion of member benefits over time, which are kind of on the uptick, but it's still going to take some time. There are solutions being, kind of solved now, or completed, figured out now, not really completed. It's going to take a long time. So what are some of the true, like, real ways you look to stabilize our future from the organizational perspective, and return value to the members?
Sure. Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. And certainly, first and foremost, what I'm trying to do is take this time period as a period of learning, right? So I'm really making a concerted effort to do a lot of listening, asking a lot of questions. And so while I've been at the enterprise for 2 years, certainly initially after the acquisition you just mentioned, right? There's every acquisition. Let me put it this way: no acquisition ever goes as smoothly as you want it, right? I've been involved with 6 or 7 in my career. They never do. There's always issues, and especially the nature of the HC Pro acquisition. It was a asset carve out, right? So we were existing as part of a larger organization. So that meant we had to rebuild a lot of systems, not everything conveyed. So there was a lot that I had to focus on, and the HC Pro team had to focus on, just on HC Pro. So it took a while for me to start, kind of getting my head above water, to start, learning more about AHIMA and some of the challenges they were facing. But I did over time. I mean, I was sitting on the AHIMA executive team. Certainly issues would come up. And so, I do think one of the biggest mistakes I could make is thinking, well, I've been here 2 years. I know what the issues are. So here's what I'm going to start doing right away. So I'm really trying to take the time to learn. I was announced on Monday, the 24th. That was the Monday before Thanksgiving. The the Monday after Thanksgiving, I started having one-on-one meetings with folks across the AHIMA enterprise. Today, I've done 15 one-on-ones. I have another 11 scheduled before we go off on break next week. And that's just internal staff, right? And I'm focusing more on the AHIMA side, but I will talk to the HC Pro staff as well. And I'm just trying to learn as much as I possibly can. There's a good mix of fairly new folks, but that have still seen a lot of change over the past couple of years, to those who have been here, 10, 15, 20 plus years. So I'm taking the time to learn, to make sure I understand why certain decisions were made, what the opportunities are, what the challenges are. I've also released a survey to all employees that asks them all the same 5 questions, basically about what are your challenges, what are the opportunities, what would you focus on if you were me, right? And I'm gathering all that information now. I think there's been, while certainly a lot of challenges in recent history, there has been a lot of good work done, certainly in the last 2 years that I've observed. I think there's been important work getting more structure around cost management at AHIMA. I think we are in a much stronger financial position today than we were a couple of years ago, but more work needs to be done. So part of what I'm doing is offering that stability of we're staying the course. We still need to focus on some of our operational issues that we have. Again, I think I mentioned on the town hall, we just had the 2026 budget approved, and within that budget, there's a significant investment for our IT infrastructure. So we have to maintain focus on those operational items. The way I think about it is there are operational efficiency things we have to improve upon, and then there's our more strategic initiatives. And they're connected, they're both important, but they're also distinct. And we have to get the operational things done correctly before we can enact our strategy. It's not to say the strategy is on hold right now, but we need to make sure we're doing the right things operationally so that we can provide a better member experience, right? So that all our systems are working for members when they go to, renew or recertify. So I'm certainly taking that approach. I do hope that I do offer some level of continuity and stability, just the fact that I am a known quantity to at least, and I'm speaking more internal staff right now. Certainly I've met some AHIMA members and those in the community over the past couple of years, but I've developed strong relationships with a lot of the staff and certainly the executive team. So I'm hopeful that I can bring some level of stability and continuity just through my presence there and understanding what they've all gone through. And then there's, the efforts towards, kind of our strategic initiatives. And I think we have a very robust strategic plan that was put in place. My view about a strategic plan is it's not just a static document. It should always be an evolving, ongoing exercise to review that and pivot where necessary. And so, and I'll take a breath in case you have another question, but I do have thoughts on how we can kind of help crystallize, AHIMA's strategy, both for staff and for AHIMA members and other HI professionals.
I know our third question that we submitted that we talked about on our outline, because we always like to prepare, is talking about the future, and I think that's where the strategy goes. But I can appreciate the fact that you've technically been on the job for almost 4 weeks, and you've taken the opportunity to start the one-on-ones. I mean, immediately after the announcement, you've taken the opportunity to already be on a member town hall, which I think you did a great job on that. I participated in that. I tend to listen where Shannon tends to ask the questions. Yeah, I text Shannon my questions, and I'm like, "Hey, say this when you're on there," because I know you're going to pop off of mute. But
he always gets frustrated because I don't ask what he wants me to.
Yeah, but I appreciate the fact that you've done that, and the fact that, you're doing this. You took the time out of your 4 weeks in to jump onto another way to reach our membership through this means. So, we want you to be successful. It's something Shannon and I have told previous folks. We do get that little bit of a reputation here in Tennessee amongst the component associations and amongst the profession that we're a little bit loud, a little bit, I don't know, it's crazy, but we want you to be successful. We truly have a passion for this profession and for our association. So I appreciate what you've shared so far. So if we switch and we start looking at that strategy, what is the future for the HI profession and for our association? And then finally, how can we support you and AHIMA in this new realm that we're heading.
Sure. Well, to kind of start at the end first, because I was going to say, just before I get into the strategy in the future, you talked about maybe being a little bit more vocal, expressing concerns. And, my approach is I would so much rather someone show their frustration because that shows you care. That's so much better than apathy, right? If someone just walks away, that's where we've really made a mistake. So I appreciate the feedback, and in terms of how you and others can help, it's that, like, let's have the conversation. I genuinely mean it and I've said this to internal staff, but I have a virtual open door. Any staff member at any time, I welcome them to, we use Teams, so the Teams chat, or send me an email, give me a call, and I welcome any HI professional to do the same. Any member, any non-member, that's how I'm going to learn. And I've built my career. The theme throughout my career, maybe after the environmental job, is working at organizations that provide critical information for the various professionals. And my role in that is finding the best people to do that. So in developing relationships with those true subject matter experts. And so I view my role now no different, right? We have an amazing board of directors, highly qualified. Internally, we have on AHIMA, I think there are 10 or 11 credentialed professionals. HC Pro, there are another 10 or 11 credentialed HI professionals. These are our subject matter experts that we lean on day in and day out. We work with many other contractors on a regular basis who are, health information professionals and experts. And so, that to me, my role is to understand what the issues are and remove those roadblocks, and then lean on the people who are the true experts. I know a little about a lot, but probably just enough to be dangerous. So, I need to lean on the true experts. So I just wanted to make that comment. But in terms of, the future and the strategy, and thinking about this, to me, it all kind of comes back to, it's going to sound simple, but data, right? And you think about the importance that data plays in healthcare. And I don't know that I was going to ask you all this. Have you all had a podcast episode yet where you didn't talk about AI?
No, because it's illegal in 2025.
It drives me nuts.
Right.
But, honestly, I'm not sure that we have. If we did, it was totally an accident, and I hope the cops don't come and get us.
Yeah, watch out. It might be coming. So I think you do have to talk about it, right? And it's certainly in the context of where the HI profession is going. But the way I think about it is AI does what it does by leveraging data. And by leveraging AI, you're creating more data and more information. And so when I think about the things that are important in that context, it's things you have to understand: data structure and data governance, compliance issues, interoperability, privacy and security. Those are all the core competencies of health information professionals. And so as we see the potential, disruption in certain ways of AI and other technology, I just see it as such an opportunity for HI professionals to be that critical, playing that critical role. And so I know it can be, it can cause fear and concern for some people, depending on what your role is. But I truly believe that in this lies opportunity for health information professionals to play that critical role, and opportunity for AHIMA to help them play that role. And so that kind of leads into my, again, so I wish I had a crystal ball and could tell you exactly where the profession's going, but I do see a lot of those core issues I mentioned remaining critical. I do see some of the roles evolving. We've talked about things like, AI auditor, data steward, interoperability specialist, and so I think the more that AHIMA can do to help prepare health information professionals for those types of roles, obviously the better. And as I think about AHIMA strategy, in my mind, I try to simplify it a bit to say, I think there are four, and I kind of refer to them as strategic imperatives. These are the four areas that we have to focus on. These are imperative for us. It starts, for me, it starts with education. So what's our first contact with a health information student, whether that's someone right out of high school or whether that's a 45-year-old making a second or third career choice? How do we provide high quality content and education to help them prepare for their career, ultimately sit for a certification? And so that's sort of more what I would consider the entry level education side. But then there's the opposite end of the spectrum, which AHIMA can drive thought leadership through education And, we've done some work on our academic journal, AHISP. You may know we recently renamed it, so Advances in Health Information Science and Practice. And so the more we can do to drive that higher thought leadership as well, I think helps. So kind of looking at education from both ends. The next, I think about our role and importance of advocacy. And I'm hoping you both know Lauren Ripplinger. I mean, her team out of DC is fantastic. They do such important work, and so obviously they're going to continue to do what they do. They've developed a great agenda for 2026. But I also see them, I kind of use the simple analogy of I view them as sort of the fire watchers up on the tower, looking for the sparks out in the distance and to identify something that's coming, and then be able to relay that to, say, Jennifer Miller, who I know you had on. And, Jennifer's team is doing a lot of great work. They've got an aggressive plan for 2026. But to feed them that information, to translate that into, okay, what does the health information professional today need to know and do? And so that kind of leads into the third area, which is career advancement. So I look at career advancement in two ways. Again, it's all the technical skills that AHIMA can provide content and training and education on to help them continue to upskill. And certainly there will be plenty related to AI, but all those other competency areas I mentioned. But the other area too, which I think AHIMA can do a bit more on, is on leadership development. So, you heard my story. I don't know about all of you, but, my experience is a lot of people, you're that really good individual contributor. You're doing really, really great at your job. And then all of a sudden you're promoted and you're a manager. Yeah. Well, no one's ever taught you how to be a good manager or leadership unless you take that on yourself. And so what can AHIMA do to offer some of that leadership development for health information professionals? I mean, we do some great work now. We have the mentorship program. We have the leadership academy. But I think there are other things we can do, especially for that sort of mid-level HI professional. And so I want to explore some things we can do there. So career advancement is third. And then the last area, still thinking of what to call this exactly, but I think AHIMA has a real important role to play in demonstrating value to employers. Why as an employer, as an organization, should I be interested in hiring an AHIMA credentialed professional? What value does a health information professional bring to an employer? I think in the past, there's been some good marketing and communications efforts around it, but I think we can do more to truly show, what the potential ROI and return on investment, not lease of information, but that return of investment for employers. Why should I be interested in hiring, a health information credentialed professional? So showcasing value to employers, but also showcasing value to the public, and we've talked, I know, a lot about it being sort of an unseen role and not getting the exposure that it has deserved in the past. And we've embarked on a few different initiatives that you may know of. And I think, so both of you are on the town hall. I think we showed a video clip that came out of our partnership with Content with Purpose. And there's a bunch more where that came from. And there's another initiative we're working on that would be more for the general public. And I think that's important to highlight the importance of health information professionals. And I think about those four things again of, we educate, we advocate, we elevate your career advancement, and we demonstrate value. If we can focus on those four things and do those four things really well, I think the value proposition of becoming an AHIMA member just speaks for itself. And so obviously, each one of those four things has a lot of different initiatives that we'll undertake to build up those areas. But I'm trying to just crystallize those four as key strategic imperatives that we need to focus on moving forward.
Yeah, thank you. So the leadership, I agree with you. In fact, one of the consulting, one thing that I'm doing currently is helping with someone who was promoted from this to a VP and have absolutely not been trained to, to know how to do that. And so that's some of the work that we're doing now. That's not an HIM person, but we need that so badly. A lot of times in our roles, in the roles that are in hospitals or physician or other healthcare organizations, we are just given a budget and then expected to live within, but we don't really get to do planning and projecting and understanding, which lever we can pull to do something on that macro scale. And so in that leadership development that you're talking about, I certainly hope that includes the micro and macroeconomics of healthcare. And yes, I agree. The policy team is incredible. Lauren Ripplinger's name has been mentioned more on this podcast than any other person. I think we are,
I don't doubt it.
Built a great team. We talk about her all the time. She's so necessary in the work that she does, and the way she does it. She's just so necessary. And Andrew is doing a great job.
The entire team.
He's incredible. Yes, and they are, Kate. They're all amazing. And we do need them so badly. I have a question. If Seth, I've got one that's a little off. It's connected, but Seth, don't kill me.
Make it the last question, and you can close it up.
Question. Okay. I knew he was giving me the stink eye, so I knew I needed to quit. So I asked you a little bit of kind of a product question when we were on the town hall about products, new products that would be available in the market. Is that going to go in the AHIMA store? Is it going to go in the HCPro store? They're very different. But I did hear you talk about the data component, and this, we understand data. Health information professionals really understand structured and unstructured data and all of the requirements around interoperability. Even if we don't understand how to write a fast, a FHIR, we don't know how to fill one of those out or create one. The question I have really is around that. How will you determine, as the leader now, of both of these organizations, how will you determine when a product opportunity comes to you? How will you determine if it goes in this side or in this side of the house?
Like a member benefit versus a product for sale, right?
Well,
Is that
a member benefit product
benefit that means we don't pay for it?
I'm actually thinking from an economic perspective.
Good question.
For the product itself, will generate revenue from products, right? Now, yes, as a member benefit, maybe that's a product that's discounted, but AHIMA, and especially with Dave's background, there's an opportunity for software to be leveraged through AHIMA and sold into the market, right? How will you determine where a product lives? That's going to be a challenge.
So, Jennifer's done a great job identifying and I don't know if she shared this with you, but she has, and I hope I can do this off the top of my head. I may not be able to do it, but kind of these 4 categories of where she wants to build out content and product. I don't think the first one's, compliance and governance evolution. I know one is on AI literacy and AI governance. I think one's on cybersecurity. And then I think the 4th is more rev cycle and workflow solutions. And so, and there are certain topics, and take privacy and security, where that's really AHIMA focuses on that. HCPro doesn't play as much. HCPro's focus has really been on kind of mid-rev cycle, so medical coding, CDI, and Medicare compliance, little denials management. And also the other distinction, while HCPro started off in much more of a direct to end user, individual subscriptions, it's evolved over time into much more of, we're approaching an organization at more of the department level and offering more staff training. We have a solution we call Propel, and we sell it as a subscription. We view it almost more like a membership. You're a coding department, and you're going to subscribe to our Propel coding, and it's usually a 3-year deal. And so, and I'm not saying we'll never do other software solutions at HCPro. We do have a couple really nice tools there. I think that's more of the distinction of, we're going to continue to make improvements and enhancements on HCPro that are focused on those 3 core areas of coding, CDI, and Medicare at the kind of organization level. At AHIMA, Jennifer's focus, we're really trying to improve the value for AHIMA members and HI professionals in general. And again, in those kind of 4 strategic areas I mentioned. Could there be instances where, you kind of have to make that judgment call of where it best fits? That may depend on the team that's able to work on it. And certainly both sides will have instances where they're generating revenue from new products because they are distinct entities. As long as we're tracking the revenue appropriately, that's okay. So
I think it's a great answer, because I've not heard it articulated that way between HCPro and AHIMA. So I appreciate that, because now I can sort of see and it's not a hard line.
Well, it's not a hard line, but in general, I think it tends to work.
Very
Very
good.
good. Thank you. I'm not going to ask any more, although I have 1,000 questions I'd love to ask you. Seth will not allow
Okay.
it.
Well,
But
I'd love to follow up.
yeah, well, that's one thing we will ask you. So I assume LinkedIn is the best place for members to connect with you from a
LinkedIn, but also I'm
business.
happy. Yeah. Email david.cella@ahima.org. Again, Cella, no H. It's like the instrument, but an A. Please email me. LinkedIn. I am pretty active on LinkedIn. So send me a chat there. I'm happy to connect. And I do welcome the connection.
Perfect. Well, thank you for joining us, and we'll get this out to the membership as soon as possible to get your name and your message out there. And we look forward to supporting you and making sure that we make AHIMA successful as members and passionate people in Tennessee.
Yeah,
absolutely. All right, Shannon.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Shannon. Until next time, my friend.
See you next time, buddy.